Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of This Week in Space Science. I'm Michael Baltimore, and it's my great pleasure to be here with Dr. Sean Cruzen, the Executive Director of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center here at Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia. You're watching us on CSU TV, and we're very happy to have Sean here. Sean, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks. Thanks for having me in today.
Well, it's my pleasure as usual. You know, we're bringing folks on that watch our television channel here, whether it's on the web or it's on the apps, on their iPhone, mobile devices, on local cable, on Mediacom and other outlets. Information about what's going on in space science, and you are the man with that. And we appreciate all the knowledge, all the information that you bring to us to help us understand what's going on out there. Now, today we have a very special program. I may have said that before, but this one really is a very special program because as the Executive Director of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center, which is a fascinating place with a great team of people who have outreach to so many young folks that are coming through there from the schools and from other places in this region, doing wonderful work educating folks and just really helping Columbus State University and the College of Education Health Professions probably like no other. And so I'm really pleased that today we're going to talk about some of the things that have happened at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center over this past year. We have a long list. I'm really just happy to start this list and just go down and find out what you've accomplished. And by the way, you should be very proud of your accomplishments here at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. For those of you who don't know, haven't visited, you have to do that down on Front Avenue here in Columbus, Georgia, the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. Amazing artifacts, as we're going to learn, the planetarium, the telescope, the research that you have going on down there. So I need to stop talking and just go down this list of accomplishments that you've done in this past year.
So first of all, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to do the special edition of This Week in Space Science and just look at the retrospective of 2013. So that's really what we're going to look at, is some of the cool things that have happened in that last calendar year, and the accomplishments for the Space Science Center are really always a team effort. And many of our team members are students right here at Columbus State University, and I think you're going to find more about that as we go through the process of the show here. But again, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk about some of the very interesting things that have happened in this last year. It was a great year. 2013 was a really great year in the history of Space Science Center. We had all kinds of amazing things happen, and I'd like to share those with you now.
Yeah, there was some very interesting things. You have some video that we're going to show as we're coming along. You're always bringing in great pictures for us to look at. But you know, really, this is important because you've documented all of this work. And sometimes people wonder, well, what's being done? What's being accomplished? This is a wonderful opportunity just to go down that list. And you have so many things out there that you guys have done. Your team down there is an amazing team. And I'm a big fan of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center for sure. And I want to urge people to go out, whether it's astronomy night, which we don't talk about as much as we used to, but all of that just to visit and really learn something about what's going on in science.
So quickly, you know, the Space Science Center, for folks that don't know, it's a multifaceted facility. We do have the state's only Challenger Learning Center, which is a place where people can come in and fly a simulated space mission. We also have our planetarium, which is called our Omnisphere Theater. It's a high-resolution, 50-foot dome, full dome, high-res video system that projects up on that dome. We also have our Midwest Vaco Observatory, and that not only is it's not just a single telescope, although it is a single telescope in the Space Science Center's location, but we also have a fleet of portable telescopes that we take out into the community or various times right at the Space Science Center and do what are called astronomy nights and do public outreach and show people the nighttime sky. And we also now have a brand new exhibit gallery. The gallery itself isn't new, but what's sitting inside of it is new, and those are some of the things we're going to talk about. So we are a unit of Columbus State University. We're a department within the university, but we work very closely with a number of academic departments, both in education and in science, and those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about here. So.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to get to some of this and show the folks watching just what you've accomplished. And again, you should be very proud of this work. All right, so where do we start on this list?
Let's start out with a couple of let's start out with students, because right here at Columbus State University, that's the heart of what we do. We help students advance their careers and prepare for their careers. And one of the things that we want to talk about most closely here is that we have a very close affiliation at the Space Science Center with the Department of Earth and Space Sciences. In fact, that's where I am a faculty member. I'm in that department. And so many of those students who are in that department who are majoring in Earth and Space Sciences are doing work at the Space Science Center. Some of the students are in a brand new track of study within that major, and that track is astrophysics and planetary geology. The other tracks include environmental science and geology and secondary science education. So all of those tracks in Earth and Space Science are new tracks, but the astrophysics track, we had recently our first 2 graduates from that program.
Nice.
And that's a really amazing milestone. And you're going to see those 2 guys among these 4 guys right here. So on the left-hand side, you'll see Matt Perry, and then Truman Williams, Brandon Furnish, and on the far right-hand side, you'll see Zach Edwards. So the far left-hand side is Matt Perry, the far right-hand side is Zach Edwards. These guys, these 4 guys, were all presenting some of their work at the American Astronomical Society Conference. But the first 2 guys I mentioned, far left and far right, Matt Perry, Zach Edwards, are our first 2 graduates within that track.
All right, great.
And the neat thing about that is they were both accepted into graduate school. And so they are both now in grad programs doing research in earth science and astrophysics. And Zach Edwards is at Louisiana State University, and he's studying supernova and supernova remnants, which is an amazing field that he got started right here at CSU with Dr. Rosa Williams. And Matt Perry is pursuing an earth science degree program at New Mexico Institute for Mining Technology, or we refer to that as New Mexico Tech. If you know the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, those giant radio telescopes out there at the Very Large Array, the VLA, those are based at New Mexico Tech. And so Matt Perry's out there at that university working in a program in earth sciences and planetary studies out there. So really proud of both of those guys, and congratulations to them. They've done a lot of great work here. Again, they worked with Dr. Williams, both of those guys did, on her supernova remnant database, which is recognized internationally by the International Astronomical Union. It's housed here at Columbus State University at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. And so that database of supernova remnants in the Large Magellanic Cloud, astronomers all over the world are accessing that database, and both Matt and Zach got to work on the development of that database and some of the research that came out of that. So
wow, what a nice
really great accomplishments, and we're really proud of those guys, and all the best success to them as they go on to grad school.
Oh, that is great. You know, and it also says that right here in Columbus, Georgia, at Columbus State University, you can get the kind of education that moves you forward into these graduate programs, and you can study space right here at Columbus State University.
That's exactly right. Amazing. So I've been with the university for a very long time now, 17 years, but it's only recently that we've now had majors in astrophysics, and those folks are going on now to have some success, as you say, and we're really proud of not only those students who have gone on, but also of the program itself, that, as you say, is giving them experience sufficient enough that they can get into grad school now. So it's a really great accomplishment for them, and I think for our department and all the folks in Earth and Space Sciences.
All right, that is wonderful. All right, check that on the list right there of accomplishment. I think we just saw a picture that came up just briefly there of Cameron, if I'm not mistaken.
We did. So we want to talk about another one of our students, is Cameron McCarty. Oh, yeah. And he's another student in the astrophysics and planetary geology track, Earth and Space Sciences. And of course, he's there on the left. He's in Australia. I'm going to tell you why he was in Australia here in a minute.
All right.
But on the right-hand side is a beautiful shot that Cameron got to take of Comet Ison. Now, this photograph was actually taken under the remote control of a telescope operated at the Marshall Space Flight Center, because Cameron McCarty was doing an internship at the Marshall Space Flight Center in their Near-Earth Environment Center, working with Dr. Bill Cook over there. And so as part of that experience at the Marshall Space Flight Center, Cameron was able to take that photograph of Comet Ison using a robotically controlled telescope. The telescope itself was actually in New Mexico, but because Cameron was doing his internship at Marshall, he was able to be on a project where he got to photograph Comet Ison in such a beautiful way.
That is a beautiful photograph, and by the way, it was shown not only just here, it went around the world, did it not?
Yeah, it was featured on NASA's website during their coverage of the oncoming of Comet ISON. And of course, if you follow this show, or if you just pay attention, you might know that Comet ISON, it didn't make it around the sun. It got too close to the sun and just was vaporized. So actually, Cameron got to have a very historic photograph of a comet that is not even in existence now. So he was able to add to that historic record of that comet and the whole passing of that comet.
But that also just talks about the kind of education that people get when they come here at Columbus State University and participate in the earth science and the astrophysics and all of those things that you have there. So what a nice accomplishment, and Cameron's got a great photo. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Cameron's a very talented student, and we're very proud of him, and we're very proud of him for all of his hard work at Space Science Center and within the Department of Earth and Space Sciences that led him to be selected for that NASA internship. So that's just fantastic.
You know, some of the other items I know on this list, I know that you guys have gone through remodeling and bringing things in, and I remember at some point you had to tear a door open to get some things in, so I understand you have a new telescope. All right, let's go to that.
We do. We have a brand new telescope that we were able to purchase with a grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And this new telescope was installed in our observatory in July of 2013. So another one of those 2013 accomplishments. And there it is. And you can see Cameron, he's up there in the yellow hard hat, actually. He was one of the students who was helping to do the work to install that telescope. But
you must have taken this photo. You're not in this photo.
Believe it or not, when this photograph was taken and this telescope was installed, I was actually on a field course with Dr. Clint Baranow and a group of Earth and Space Sciences students. We were out in Oregon at the time, so I was doing geology by day, astronomy by night, and sleeping on the ground in the meantime.
Very busy man.
but while I was teaching that field course, my team down there at the Space Science Center, as you said, they worked to install that. And of course, some of the folks in that, Dr. Rosa Williams in the blue shirt right there in the center, she's the observatory director. Lance Tankersley, Michael Johnson, Chris Johnson, Mary Johnson, and several of the other students who were involved in the program as well. John Hood, Matt Bartow from Space Science Center, and Nick Carpenter.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys there, Stephen Wright is also in that picture.
All right, that sounds really good. Now, tell me about that telescope. What are you guys viewing with this telescope? What do we do with it now that we got it installed?
Well, the main project with that telescope is twofold. Number one, it's to be used for nighttime imaging and to take photographs of the night and be able to webcast those photographs out to folks around the world. And number two, and its most primary goal actually, is to be able to photograph the sun. And we do that with what are called hydrogen alpha telescopes and calcium K-line filter telescopes that ride piggyback on top of that big telescope. And we are also allowing folks to be able to see the images from those solar telescopes via webcasting. And what we're working on now to complete that project for the IMLS grant, we're working on software control to facilitate remote control of that telescope system so that any teacher in any classroom around the world will be able to log in and control that telescope remotely. Mind you, they have to make some plans with us ahead of time. They have to reserve time on it.
Got to get on schedule, right?
Not going to be able to just willy-nilly drive the telescope around. But if you reserve some time with us, you'll be able to log in and control that telescope from the classroom. And so your students and the teacher in charge of that classroom will be able to drive that telescope, point it at various features on the sun, and remotely observe from anywhere in the world via the internet. So we're very excited about that project, and that's what we're hoping to get accomplished here within the next year or so.
You know, there's a lot of sharing. That one of the things I've learned of being on the show with you is that there is that type of sharing of education, information, working together, that collaboration from really around the world on these events that happen in space. And so but I guess there's some good reasons for that too. You can verify that something has actually happened or not.
That's right, exactly.
And measure it in different ways, I suppose. So.
Well, for something like the Comet ISON event, it actually looks slightly different depending on where you are in the world, because the comet is close enough that it can actually see some parallax against the distant stars in the background. If it's something like a lunar eclipse or an asteroid passing or a variety of those kinds of things, it depends on where you are in the world and where you are to observe that phenomenon. They look different. And so these are the kinds of things that, yes, you could observe from a telescope in Australia, but then also control our telescope from Australia and see two different views of the same nighttime celestial phenomenon taking place. And so that's one of the advantages of having that kind of a internet accessible remote controlled observatory.
All right, very nice. I'm really good. I want to go back and see some of the images with that new telescope you've got down there. All right, so we want to cut to this next one. I know a little bit about this and this next one. I've actually had a picture made with this thing somewhere in the archives there. The Space Shuttle main engine nozzle that came. Tell us about this. This is a great story.
This is a fantastic development for the Space Science Center, and here you see in our exhibit gallery the newly installed Space Shuttle main engine nozzle. It's number 5002. That means we know exactly what missions this particular nozzle flew on. It is a SSME nozzle. It's part of the RS-25 engine system that drove the shuttle. That same engine system is now being incorporated into NASA's new rocket, which is called the SLS, Space Launch System. And so not only is it part of NASA's past, but it's also part of NASA's future in terms of what they're going to be doing with that particular engine system. The nozzle that you just saw sitting in our exhibit gallery actually has been to space 9 different times. It flew on 4 of the 5 space shuttles. So it is a serious veteran of the space program, a serious piece of NASA hardware, and some very historic missions that it flew on. It flew on the very first docking with the Mir space station. So that was a very interesting mission that it was on. Charles Bolden was actually on a flight that this nozzle was used on. Charles Bolden is now the director of NASA, and so it actually carried him into space. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, after he passed away, they flew his ashes into space. That mission was also powered by the engine system that this nozzle was a part of, and so that's another historic first. Sure. The first time that the GPS system ever flew in space was aboard a space shuttle that was carried to space by that engine and that nozzle system right there. So those are just a few of the highlights of some of the great missions that engine nozzle got to be a part of. And now it sits in the exhibit gallery at the Space Science Center, along with about $17 million in total of space shuttle artifacts from the space shuttle program. Some of the artifacts are also there, and I'm not going to show you these right now. I'm going to just encourage you to come down and see them. But they include consoles out of the firing room from Kennedy Space Center. They include one of the space shuttle escape baskets from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. They include a space shuttle a space shuttle front tire, which was also flown into space a couple of times. An onboard computer system, a section of the leading edge of the wing, some space suits, some clean room suits, a shuttle tile, and a variety of other electronics that were used on a variety of space missions to monitor the health of the astronauts. All of those things can be seen in the exhibit gallery of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. Now, getting that nozzle in, you kind of alluded to this at the first of the show.
Yes, I know about
it. It wasn't an easy task. See,
you just didn't open the door and bring that right in.
Well, I wish we could have done that, but apparently architecturally, there were some giant beams that were installed right at the doorway of the Space Science Center.
These guys are moving very fast.
You know, my team at the Space Science Center, they work quick. They're very quick.
Okay, this is time lapse.
This is obviously some time lapse video. What's being taken down right there, and you can see some destruction going on, or deconstruction. That's our old Apollo capsule mock-up. We used to call it the giant Hershey's Kiss. I would call it a low-resolution model of what an Apollo capsule looked like. And of course, that was there, and it served a lot of years, and it was very useful to be able to
very small back in
teach
the day,
students.
too.
Exactly, they were smaller back then.
To that, right?
So it was useful to teach students about the Apollo mission, but it wasn't my favorite component in the exhibit gallery at Space Science Center. So this is my crew tearing it apart. Deconstructing it.
Yes, of course.
They're deconstructing in a very careful manner right there.
They are.
Stepping on it, and I think there's about to be some grinders used and sparks flying. But anyway, this is all making way in the main part of our exhibit gallery for that space shuttle main engine nozzle to come in. And so there it goes. It's cleared out. Move that piece out of the way. And what's going to happen here is you're going to see a jump to where it turns to daylight, and during the day, actually we may need to. I'm not sure. We may need to jump this manually here. Oh, that's our custodian.
Yeah,
that's Miss Yolanda. She's coming in and cleaning up.
Yeah, this is how it happens, right? Okay, there you go.
There it is. Well, she was amazingly fast here. Okay, here's our crew of workmen. They're looking at that front entrance because here's the thing.
Right.
The main engine nozzle was sitting on the stand, which you saw in the photograph. The nozzle and stand itself, even though measurements were taken ahead of time, were just slightly too tall for that doorway.
Oh, come on.
Yep. That's the way it worked. So
measure,
what you're going to see right now,
twice, cut once, something to that effect. But
well, you know, it's there's a long, complicated story for why these things happen. But sometimes you just miss.
Seriously, you had it on a stand.
It was sitting on a stand. We thought we had the stand the right height.
There we go.
And our plant operations crew, of course, was helping us out with all of that. The stand was beautifully welded by some welders here in town. It's a really nice piece to be able to hold that nozzle up. But the reason these guys are working so hard, you can see that nozzle trying to peek in there on the right-hand side. You saw it just peek its nose, and there it is right there. Notice it's not fitting under that steel beam. Here's some guys, I think they're putting Vaseline or something, Crisco oil on it, trying to squeeze it in there. It's not going to make it, and it has to be taken back out. Now, what happens at this point is there's some actual damage done to the flashing on the beam at the front door right there. What's now happening is somewhere out there are welders who are actually cutting that stand down.
Okay.
So we had to take the nozzle off the stand, cut the stand down, retool the doorway here, put the nozzle back on the stand. This was all done in one day, by the way.
Oh,
and
really?
Mike Medlock and the crew from Plant Operations doing a fantastic job helping us out with this. It was a rainy day, so they couldn't even get the crane truck onto our grass, which is just outside that door. They had to all be doing this from street level.
Look, it made it while you were talking.
There you go. But as you can see, eventually they got it cut back down, they got it inside, and now we have a Space Shuttle main engine nozzle finally inside the exhibit gallery at Space Science Center. That was in February of 2013. One of the big milestones for the Space Science Center in 2013. One of the things we're most proud about is that brand new set of exhibits on the Space Shuttle program. If you're watching this video, and if you're ever in the Southeast, you need to come down here. We're halfway between Marshall Space Flight Center and Kennedy Space Flight Center. We're right in the middle. Make that drive, that historic drive from the Marshall Space Flight Center to the Kennedy Space Flight Center. Stop in and see the Coca-Cola Space Science Center and see our new exhibits of NASA artifacts, shuttle artifacts sitting in the exhibit gallery.
You can learn a lot by coming down and seeing that. That is amazing. Well, you know, if first you don't succeed, you guys made it happen, and I think that was just as cool as it could be right there. All right, main engine nozzle, 5,000.
It's home.
Right
it's home
there.
now. That's right.
And it's there. Okay, some other great things happened in 2013, and we're running down the CCSSC retrospective right here on our Red Alert set. As you noticed in the background, you had a webcast that got thousands of people viewing.
We did.
We've got to hear about that. Tell us all about it.
We had a fantastic webcast opportunity. It began with a collaboration with NASA's Education and Public Outreach Division. We had the year before, in 2012, worked with them on the webcast of the Transit of Venus. Had 1.4 million viewers to our webcast in that particular event in 2012. So they knew that we did these webcasts, and they knew we were willing to travel to some exotic locations in order to make those webcasts happen. This time there was an eclipse that was just going to cut across one of the horns of Australia, Cape York. So Cape York, Australia is a very remote location. It's only on the tip of that place that this eclipse is going to be visible. And so they asked us if we'd be interested in webcasting that event. We said yes, we would.
Yes.
And so a team from the Space Science Center actually traveled to Australia, went down to Cape York, and pulled off this amazing photograph of what was called a ring of fire eclipse. It was an annular eclipse. The moon was at this point called apogee, where it's its furthest point from the Earth. So it's just a little bit smaller in angular size. It doesn't completely cover up the sun. And what you're seeing right here is our photographs from that webcast of that event near totality, where the moon is moving almost onto the face of the sun.
Right,
and you see it looking like a purple ring here. Yeah, that's a video
so
taking
we see
place
the clouds
right there.
moving there if you're watching closely on the set.
The inset in that video on the bottom right-hand side right there, that's actually a shot from a little webcam the guys had set up at their observing site. And you can see those clouds moving in front of the sun. In fact, right at totality, we thought, oh my goodness, this is terrible. The clouds are going to move in front and cover it up at the most critical time. And as you can see, it did for a short period of time. But the clouds were just patchy enough that they gave us a break, and the clouds moved back off again, and we got to view that eclipse. Now, some people might be wondering, well, why did it look purple? Well, it looked purple because of the kind of telescope that we were using. We were using a telescope called a calcium K-line telescope, and you can see these telescopes in these images right here. It would be in the upper left-hand image you're looking at right there. That's the telescope setup. It had two telescopes on it. One was that calcium K producing those purple images of the sun. The other one was a hydrogen alpha telescope And I'll show you an image from that in just a second. But this is the crew that went down there and did that observation. Upper left-hand corner, talking on the mic because there was live narration with our webcast.
Yeah.
That's Michael Johnson, our Director of External Programming. And he had his, I think it's a Crocodile Dundee hat he's wearing right there.
Yeah, you got to do that if you're in Australia.
If you're going to go to Australia, you got to
Right.
wear the Crocodile Dundee hat. On the upper right-hand side, that's Cameron McCarty. Again, that's our Earth and Space Sciences astrophysics major student. He's at an Aboriginal school. This was the day before the eclipse, and they were showing the sun to a whole group of kids who had never even seen a telescope before, let alone seen the sun through a telescope before. So that was a really great experience for Cameron to be able to have down there.
Right.
And then on the bottom row right there, you're seeing Matt Bartow. He is both an Earth and Space Sciences student. He's also an employee of the Space Science Center, and he works in our external programming department as well.
Great shot.
So Mike, Cameron, and Matt all went down to Australia and pulled off this eclipse for the ages, eclipse webcast. Because here's what happened.
Yes, tell us about it.
Literally 5 minutes before the eclipse was to begin,
Yes.
our internet connection was dead.
Okay.
And maybe 20 minutes before that happened, the National Geographic Society had called us and said, hey, do you mind if we take your webcast video and stream it right to our main page? No, we don't mind, as long as we have an internet connection. That would be fantastic. So we didn't tell Nat Geo that. We said, oh yeah, we're going to get you images, sure. Our guys in Australia could not. They tested it the day before, it worked fine, but for some reason, we still don't know why, they were unable to hook up and get an internet stream. And one of the hosts at their site gave them the cell phone that she had. She turned on the Wi-Fi, and we streamed that webcast through her data on her cell phone in this incredibly remote location in Australia right there. And so she had unlimited data, I guess, which is a very good thing.
I was wondering about her plan right there, but yeah, that's okay. That's good. Nice of her to do that too.
It was a fantastic thing for her to do, and it really saved us. And all of that hard work on the part of our team, the kindness of our hosts down there in Australia, the National Geographic Society posting that video to their website, as well as space.com, spaceweather.com, got the attention of all kinds of national news agencies. And before you know it, our images were being featured on ABC News, NBC News, Yahoo News, and a variety of other national news outlets. And so it was really a tremendous event taking place right here. And this was another one of those photographs taken during the event. This is a picture from that Hydrogen Alpha telescope that was the next day featured on the Astronomy Picture of the Day, or APOD, A-P-O-D. That's a NASA website where they feature some of the best astronomical photographs taken by professional observatories as well as amateurs anywhere in the world. And Cameron McCarty's image of that eclipse was featured on the APOD site, APOD.
He's got an eye for these things, right? Yeah.
And you know, certainly Cameron is going to get the image credit because he's the one who pushed the button, used that camera down there. But all three of those guys on that team are responsible for making that image happen and for making that webcast happen. So for Mike, Matt Bartow, and Cameron, all three, we're really proud of those guys, and they showed that eclipse to the world. 137,000 unique viewers to our webcast alone. That doesn't include all the other media outlets that carried the images. And they were from 173 different countries around the world. So a really incredible event and great fun to be able to be a part of that global webcast of the eclipse for 2013.
That really is amazing, and it's right here. It happened right here, and you guys went around the world to make it happen. 137,000 unique views. Yeah. That is really amazing. All right, let's move on to another topic here. Dr. Bernard Harris came to visit.
He did. Dr. Bernard Harris is an astronaut and physician. He was the first African American to walk in space, and he came to Columbus State University for what's called our Hunter Lecture Series. Right. That's an endowed lecture series that we have here. But we also did a whole lot of other things with Dr. Harris, and Space Science Center team was very much involved with the organization and the logistics of carrying off Dr. Harris's visit. Here, Dr. Harris is, well, he's being kind of animated at this point.
Right, he looks happy in that.
He's very happy. That's because he's talking to an auditorium filled with 900 school kids who had come here to be able to ask him questions and listen to what he had to say. So these were middle school and high school students who'd come to University Hall here at Columbus State University to hear what Dr. Harris had to say about his experiences in outer space, how to become an astronaut, and they got to ask him all kinds of questions about those amazing adventures that he had being that spacewalking astronaut that he was.
Astronaut physician. You know, he was here in the studio. You guys did a show with him.
We did.
And we videotaped his presentation downtown. We have a lot of footage of him. Greg Blaylock interviewed him on after one of the shows. So he was an amazing person and so well informed.
He was a fantastic guest and just a really great guy to have. A very inspirational message that he was able to share with those students at those events, and then later some other fantastic things happened on that very same day. We had what was called our Next Gen STEM immersion conference. We had all kinds of things.
Wait, hold on a second.
Next generation STEM, okay. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Immersion conference. We're going to just surround you with this stuff, right?
Yeah,
so that's what it was. So that occurred on the same day as the Hunter Lecture and Dr. Harris's visit here. Some other very interesting things took place. We had a workforce development forum. Where we had industry leaders who were partnering with universities from some amazing places. Khaki Rodway from X-Core Aerospace was here.
Oh, yeah.
We had Dr. Steve Ruffin from Georgia Tech. We had a variety of other people from higher education and from industry, including representatives from Georgia Power, from Twiss, which is a local computing and credit card processing facility here in Columbus, Georgia, and from a variety of other educational institutions around the state, including my good friend Ike Crumley from Fort Valley State University, has a long-standing educational partnership with Exxon to produce students who will go into the energy industry. And so this was a fantastic forum. We had about 100 people in the audience who were all community and business leaders from around the region who had gathered to discuss ideas, to hear these folks talk about partnerships between industry and education, and then just discuss ideas about how we can better prepare our next generation workforce in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields.
That was an amazing roundtable.
It was a neat roundtable.
I hope we got some video of that at some point. I don't know if we have any, but maybe somebody does in that. All right, that is great, but there's more.
Well, there was more that happened that same day, because that night was the actual Hunter Lecture itself. And of course, before that, there was also a robotics expo that took place. All 900 of those school students, after they got finished hearing Dr. Harris, went over to our old gym, as we call it here, but our practice gymnasium here on campus, and they got to see an engineering and robotics expo that featured the U.S. Army. It featured folks from Pratt & Whitney. It featured the first robotics club from Columbus. It also featured our CSU robotics students, and that was a fantastic event where all of those kids got to see the latest in robotics technology. And so this is a shot here of some of the students seeing one of the robots that was made by the CSU robotics team here. Cody O'Shea is the guy in the black shirt right there. He's one of the CSU engineering students here on campus. And that's some of the robots that are being worked on right here at Columbus State University. But a whole expo of things that they got to see and do.
You know, these kids,
that robotics
they have to be just so energized with that and so interested in robots. I mean, we were all kids at one point, and we were all fascinated with that. And
who's not fascinated by robots, by the way?
We've had a robot in here, by the way. Mary Johnson, one of your crew, brought a robot in here not long ago. So this was a wonderful event, because it also showed those kids about what we have to offer here at Columbus State University.
Sure did.
In terms of that type of education.
And that's really an important aspect too. So we not only want to inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers, but we also want to show them that there's a gateway right here at CSU for them to be able to participate in that next generation of high-tech careers. And so that's really one of the underlying accomplishments behind that whole day, was getting all those kids here to show them what great technology and development is underway right here at Columbus State University.
It is absolutely amazing, the things that's going on around here. And I'm so glad that you brought those in. Is this your list? I know there's more, right?
Well, the final thing on the list is the Hunter Lecture itself, and Dr. Harris. I think we have a shot of that. But he spoke to, again, a gathering of about 250 people from around the region who came in at a nighttime event down at the Convention and Trade Center to hear Dr. Harris speak about his adventures in space flight, but then also what it's like to be a physician working with folks who are studying the health of astronauts when they're in space, and the long-term health effects of outer space on those astronauts. And so,
yeah, I was at that lecture. We filmed that and have it in our archives here at Columbus State University. I was amazed. There were so many people with very technical and difficult questions for him,
yeah.
and he responded so well to those in a gracious way. So it was a great learning experience.
It really was a great,
absolutely the nicest guy you can meet.
He is. He's a great speaker, a very nice individual, and you saw him there with a photograph of a couple of our students. That was John Hood and Nick Carpenter from the ESS department, also getting to meet Dr. Harris, and just really excited to try to arrange those opportunities for CSU students to interact with those top flight professionals in STEM fields. Certainly Dr. Harris is one of those.
Absolutely amazing kinds of accomplishments here, and you guys should be very proud of your work at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center. Now, I understand we're going to close the show with a particular video that we had. You brought in. Tell us about that, and we'll say goodbye to our folks on this video right here.
There were some friends of ours from Narchi Media Group who rode along with us on the day that we went to the Marshall Space Flight Center and picked up our space shuttle main engine nozzle. And they did a few interviews with myself and some of our staff, and they took that video footage from that transfer of that historic artifact from Marshall Space Flight Center to the city of Columbus. And this is the video that they produced. And so we'd like to just thank them for that production, and thank you for watching our show today.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in to This Week in Space Science, Twiss. We all know it. And if you're interested in seeing some of this that we've talked about today, samsamcharlie.org on the web. That's CCSSC.
CCSSC.org.
Oh, I've learned that from you. That's why I was trying to quote you on that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to This Week in Space Science. I'm Michael Baltimore for Sean Cruz, and we'll see you next time. Watch this video.
When Commander John W. Young and pilot Robert L. Crippen boarded Space Shuttle Columbia and embarked on the first orbital flight of the fledgling STS program, NASA achieved a remarkable feat. They not only launched an aircraft capable of achieving orbit and returning to Earth safely across multiple flights, they also reawakened a nation's imagination, reigniting the fascination with outer space that had not been seen since the lunar landings a generation before. Watching Columbia escape the atmosphere brought with it the feeling that the impossible is possible, that through education, exploration, ingenuity, and our ceaseless human curiosity, there is no problem we can't solve, no mystery we can't unravel. Columbus State University's Coca-Cola Space Science Center in Columbus, Georgia, embodies that very feeling, a feeling of infinite potential. What began as an educational outreach facility for the University System of Georgia is about to embark on a bold new flight path, becoming the only museum devoted exclusively to space science and space shuttle artifacts in Georgia. This is the Coca-Cola Space Science Center's giant leap, and this is how it happened. Atlantis flew NASA's 135th mission. It would also be the last. After 30 years of shuttle exploration, the Space Shuttle program was ending. The last launch was an historic and emotional experience for all present. But for the Columbus State Coca-Cola Space Science Center crew that watched on as the Atlantis took to the final frontier a final time, it was also a deeply personal experience. Because in 2010, the Space Science Center entered an ultra-competitive process to secure NASA shuttle artifacts that would soon be decommissioned upon retirement of the last 3 functioning orbiters. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
So what NASA did was a great undertaking with this online portal. So what they had done is they would take a lot of NASA artifacts, and in the first 41 days, only certain entities that were specific to NASA, like National Air and Space Museum, Langley, Marshall Space Flight Center, had the opportunity to request these artifacts. And after that 41 days, then universities and other entities could actually apply and try and get it. So it was a very competitive process. One of the main reasons why we got some of the stuff that we did was the great passion that we have for the Science Center on what we're going to do. We're going to base a whole exhibit around these artifacts and actually bring these to the community of Columbus State University, Columbus, Georgia, and the Southeast, and share the history and passion of NASA spaceflight.
On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin untethered Apollo 11's lunar module from the command module and descended to the surface of the moon, becoming the first human beings to explore an alien world. 43 years to the day later, the faculty and staff of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center boarded a chartered bus and embarked on their own journey. At 5:45, they set out for NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, to retrieve the crown jewel of shuttle artifacts, a shuttle nozzle that had actually flown in space. Between the whirlwind of informative tours, the in-depth interviews, the photo ops, and congratulatory speeches, the pride of the NASA staff in turning over this relic of the shuttle program, and the excitement of the Coca-Cola Space Science Center's crew in receiving it, the gravity of the situation settled on all involved. Both centers were in the process of taking another giant leap forward, and both centers were excited to be sharing this little moment, acknowledging it together.
What an amazing day in Huntsville, Alabama at the Marshall Space Flight Center when we went there to pick up our nozzle. They really rolled out the red carpet for us. We knew that they were going to do something, some kind of a handoff ceremony, but we had no idea the lengths that they were going to go to thank us for taking this important artifact and putting it on permanent display in our exhibit gallery.
The journalist Norman Cousins once stated, "What was most significant about the lunar voyage was not that man set foot on the moon, but that they set eye on the earth. Through exploration, we find ourselves." That could very well be the mission statement of the staff at Columbus State University's Coca-Cola Space Science Center.
For more than 30 years, America's Space Shuttle program has inspired our world to drive technology and advancement in search of greater things. And now at the Coca-Cola Space Science Center at Columbus State University, it will continue to inspire the next generation of professionals in STEM fields and the next imaginations that will shape and form the technology and exploration of the future.
Whether attending the last shuttle launches of Atlantis and Endeavour, tracking the transit of Venus in the Gobi Desert, or looking ahead to STEM advancements and space tourism, the Coca-Cola Space Science Center and its crew carry with them always the knowledge, exuberance, and adventurous spirit needed to inspire people of all ages to get out and explore our world and the universe beyond. Because in better knowing the universe, we better know ourselves.